John in Ohio wants to explain why he believes in God. John, first of all, welcome to the show. And second of all, to make this easy, I'm going to stop talking in just a second. And all we need you to do is describe what God you believe in and why you believe in that God, and whether or not you think your reason why should also convince us. Other than that, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Oh, good afternoon. The reason I know that God exists is because Jesus was God manifest in the flesh. And I believe that...
How do you know that Jesus was God manifest in the flesh? Because if you're going to say you know God exists, and you know God exists because of something about Jesus, now we have to ask you, how do you know that Jesus was God in the flesh?
Because of his miracles, his teaching.
How do you know that there's any miracle? How do you know that Jesus performed any miracle?
Well, how do I know that Caesar crossed the Rubicon?
Well, John, I'm the one that's asking you the question on what you just said. I didn't say anything about Caesar crossing the Rubicon. You said you know God exists because you know that Jesus is God in the flesh. And I asked, how do you know that Jesus is God in the flesh? And you said, because he performed miracles. And I asked, how do you know he performed miracles? And that's a question that you just refused to answer. So are you going to answer or not?
Because it's recorded in writing by people that experienced it.
Where? Where is there a recording of any firsthand account of any miracle by Jesus?
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Oh, I'm sorry, but Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are not necessarily firsthand accounts, and you have no way to confirm that anything they said about miracles is accurate. And even if they were firsthand accounts, which they're not, they're anonymous. Even if they recorded a miracle and you had good reason to think that that miracle occurred, that still does not prove that the only way that someone could perform such a miracle was if in fact they were God. So you have a house of cards built on nothing but you believe what's in the Bible. But the Bible needs to be confirmed to be reliable. How do you do that? How do you confirm that the story about a miracle in the Gospel of Matthew is true? How do you do that?
Matthew and John were eyewitnesses.
No, they weren't. But even if they were eyewitnesses, the fact that someone claims to be an eyewitness does not mean that what they're saying is true. So you are wrong about the authorship of the Gospels. But even if you were right, you are in fact wrong about this, sir. It says so in the Bible. If you had read the Bible and studied the authorship of the Gospels, you would not be here confirming this, right? I can open a Bible here and read it to you directly, where the very first thing that exists in here on Matthew is in the introduction on the face page of this in my NIV that's right here, is to say that the authorship, here we go. Although the first gospel is anonymous, the early church fathers were unanimous in holding that Matthew, one of the 12 apostles, was its author. But the book is in fact anonymous. We have no original copies. We don't know who wrote it. All you're going is going with what the church fathers said. But let's say for a second, let's just say for a second that Matthew was written by Matthew, who claims to be an eyewitness. How does that confirm that Jesus turned water into wine?
Matthew was a tax collector that Jesus called from his position for him to follow Jesus.
Matthew's profession is irrelevant. I asked if the author of Matthew claims that he saw Jesus turn water into wine, how do we know that that's true?
Matthew didn't claim that. That's in the book of John.
Oh. Do you know what the word "if" means?
I said the account of the water turning into wine is in the Gospel of John.
What the word "if" means?
Gonna take that as a no.
Jesus said that there's only two destinations for
Do you
people.
know what the word "if"
Oh
means?
my God.
Do you know what the word "if" means?
What does it mean?
It's a question.
Are you fucking kidding me?
What are you talking about?
John, does it bother you that when your beliefs are held to scrutiny, that when somebody asks a question, you can't answer the question, you have to ask a question back?
I don't know what he's talking about.
He
His
asked you if
account
you
is
know
in
what the
God.
word if means. Have you ever been asked what a definition for a word is before? Ever in your life?
I don't know what he's referring to.
I said,
he's not saying
Stop, John, I said, if the author of Matthew had said that Jesus turned water into wine, would that mean that it was true? It doesn't matter whether or not it doesn't matter whether that happened in Matthew or John or anything else. If any author of any book said that Jesus turned water into fucking wine, would that mean that it was true? That's the question.
if he was an eyewitness.
So eyewitnesses can't be wrong, is what you're saying?
Not in this case, there isn't.
Oh, really?
Okay.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. John, I don't believe you. I think you are lying to me right now. I don't think that you would just believe anything that an eyewitness told you.
Why do we have a court system where witnesses are brought in to give testimony? Why do we have a court
Witnesses are
system?
notoriously unreliable in those settings.
We know that eyewitness testimony. Stop talking, John. I'm answering your question, John. I'm answering your question. I'm answering your question, John. And if you interrupt me one more fucking time, I will hang up on you. The issue is we call in eyewitnesses to determine if we find their testimony reliable. And we do that by confirmation with multiple different witnesses and with physical facts and evidence at the end of an investigation. You have no way to investigate the author of the Gospel of John. You don't even have a way to confirm who it is. You have no way. This isn't sworn testimony. You have no way of showing that it's not just a storybook. So what you have is an ancient text that you believe and I don't. And all I asked you is, does the fact that the author, will go with John, says it happened, does that mean that it actually happened? And the answer is no. So what evidence do you have?
There are 4 eyewitnesses to what Jesus performed.
No,
my
there
God.
are not. No, there are not, John. And even if, that big if, even if there were 4 eyewitnesses, that would not mean that what the eyewitnesses said was true, would it?
Yes, it would.
No, it wouldn't, John.
John.
You are credulous as all get out. And I don't believe, do you believe what the Quran says about miracles?
If I had 4 eyewitnesses
Do you
in
believe what the
court,
Quran says? Do you believe what the Quran says about miracles?
the Quran was written by one person.
Okay.
Irrelevant.
John, so if you have one person writing something, that means you can dismiss it. But if you have 4 people writing something, you can't. So how many of the Gospels record Jesus turning water into wine?
4 Gospels
How
record him
many-
doing miracles. Is my point.
John, I'm muting you, and you're going to answer my question because you tried to call me out on this bullshit beforehand, and now it's coming back in your face. Of the 4 Gospels, how many of them say that Jesus turned water into wine?
1, John.
Correct. And that means you only have one author saying it, so don't you dare suggest there are 4. Do you believe Jesus turned water into wine?
Yes, but I'm talking about all of
What?
his
No,
miracles.
John.
All of them.
No, John. Why do you believe Jesus turned water into wine when there's only one author that's telling you that?
Because maybe he was the only one that was there at the time.
Maybe Muhammad was the only one who heard from an angel. How do you know? You just dismissed the entirety of the Quran because it's written by one person, and you're going to say that you believe Jesus turned water into wine, which was written by how many people again? And then you make an excuse that maybe he was the only one that knows. Yes, your standards of evidence, John, are wholly inconsistent, and that demonstrates a bias. And it's not a bias towards truth, it's a bias towards what you've been taught from the Bible,
Yeah,
which is why you believe bullshit.
John.
Which is why you believe bullshit, like you know who the authors are of anonymous books.
Hey, John, you should go onto YouTube right now and type in, John, shut up. You should go onto YouTube right now and type in eyewitness ID class exercise. I watched this when I was in Psychology 101, back my, I think, sophomore year of college. It is an experiment that they use in introduction to psychology classes to demonstrate how completely unreliable eyewitness testimony is, even if you actually had it, which you don't.
If I had 4 eyewitnesses in court to a murder, I could send somebody to the death chamber.
John,
That is
you don't have 4 eyewitnesses, and if you had 4 eyewitnesses, we would have said you had 4 eyewitnesses. But the notion that you are willing to send someone to the death chamber based on 4 eyewitnesses is fucking appalling.
It's the reason why you aren't in charge of any of our courts.
People are sent to the death chamber based on 4 eyewitnesses.
They should, no, sir. Find me anybody who went to the death chamber based just on 4 eyewitness testimonies, and I will find you a court case that is unjust. First of all, the death penalty is unjust to begin with. But the notion that you would be willing to kill someone based on what 4 people told you, you should be embarrassed, because you have horrible standards of evidence, you have inconsistent standards of evidence, and you believing bullshit.
Judges do that every day in this country. Judges do that every
Not
day.
true.
No, sir, they don't. But even if they did, that wouldn't make it right, would it?
John, it's great to know that you really like to watch political drama on the television, but that's not actually how it works. John, that's not actually how it works. I'm glad you like political TV, but Judge Judy isn't real life, just to let you know.
Yeah.
We're talking about reality here. We're not.
No, you are not talking about reality, actually.
Arden and I are talking about reality. You're talking fantasy. You have unrealistic, fantastical standards of evidence that is convincing you to believe shit that you have no good reason to believe. Do you have anything else other than, do you have anything else other than you believe the Bible that proves that there is a God?
I believe that Jesus performed miracles.
Okay. John, I've muted you. Nobody can hear you. I'm not asking you what you believe. I'm asking you whether or not you have evidence to support your beliefs. This is really simple. If you believe Jesus did stuff, do you have anything other than the Bible to confirm any of the things you believe about Jesus? Yes or no?
Yes. The same as I have evidence that Socrates lived, that Plato lived, that Caesar lived. I have evidence.
No, John, you're not fucking listening. I asked if you had evidence other than the Bible to support your claim that Jesus is God. I asked you if you had it. You said yes. I'm going to unmute you in a second so that you can present it. But you don't get to say you have the same evidence as you have for Plato existing, because A, whether or not Plato existed is an open question that nobody cares about and that you cannot confirm. But what I asked you for was not a tu quoque of, oh, I can point to these other things. It was, do you have evidence, and what is that evidence? So what is the extra biblical evidence that Jesus exists and is divine? What is that evidence?
I don't need any other evidence.
Thank you for your admission. Goodbye.
I think the entire time we were on that call, in John's head, For the Bible Tells Me So, from Apologia's channel, was just playing on repeat over and over again. Da, 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 da.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Snow, Pokemon Master and Executive Producer on The Line. Would you like to support a specific show on The Line or The Line in general? There are special tiers on our Patreon and in our channel memberships. You can do just that. By the way, you could consider leaving a super thanks down below. You could also like, subscribe, and leave a regular comment. All of these are great. Now, I'm going to get back to crushing loneliness, but while I do that, why don't you check out one of these?